Welcome, everyone. Distinguished guests, thank you all for joining us. Today, we will discuss a new report of the Atlantic Council by Dr. Olgu Okumuş, non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council in Turkey program and an experienced academic and energy expert who has worked on Mediterranean energy and climate issues for several years. We all have been watching with serious concerns the increased tensions between Greece and Turkey over the East Med region. We aim at helping with the dialogue through our reports, publications, and events as we are hosting today. As the report shows, it is crucial to build systems fostering cooperation and reduce the possibility of tensions. I will leave the discussion of this excellent report on how to overcome the challenges in the East Med to ensure regional integration to Olgu and to our panelists. It is my pleasure also to inform you all that the Atlantic Council is starting a new initiative called Eastern Mediterranean Perspectives to support this aim. This new initiative will be a joint effort by the Council's Atlantic Council in Turkey, Scowcroft Middle East Security Initiative, and Future of Europe Initiative programs, and the Global Energy Center, aiming to deliver diverse perspectives on the role of transatlantic cooperation in resolving geopolitical, economic, and energy security issues in the Eastern Mediterranean via our talented network of experts. This is the first event and report of this recent initiative. It is very encouraging to see the recent positive signs between Turkey and Greece following months of tensions, thanks in part to shuttle diplomacy by NATO. Just yesterday, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu and Greek Foreign Minister Nikos Dendias had an important meeting on sidelines of the Global Security Forum in Bratislava. I greatly hope this develops into a productive dialogue between two countries. Today, we are lucky to have with us great experts. I'm honored to be joined by three former ambassadors who all played crucial roles in the region. Richard Morningstar, founding chairman of the Global Energy Center and the board director at the Atlantic Council, former US ambassador to the Republic of Azerbaijan, and former Secretary of State's Special Envoy for Eurasian Energy. Mithat Rende, former permanent representative of Turkey to OECD, former Director General for Multilateral Economic Affairs at the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and former ambassador to Qatar. Matt Bryza, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council, Eurasia Center and Global Energy Center, former US Ambassador to Azerbaijan, and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasia. But last, not the least, our report author, Dr. Olgu Okumuş, an independent consultant in the Middle East and North Africa in the fields of energy and climate change for supranational, national, and local authorities, and senior level expert for European Commission funded initiatives, and former head of energy affairs for the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean. I would like to thank all our speakers who joined us today to discuss on this timely topic. Without further delay, now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Olgu Okumuş for a short presentation of the report, and then to our moderator, Matt Bryza, will proceed to the panel. Olga, floor is yours, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Daphne. Thank you. I would like to at first say especially thank you to Atlantic Council and Atlantic Council in Turkey team for giving me this opportunity to share with you my thoughts and my experience about the Eastern Mediterranean gas. And all the panelists for sparing time for this discussion. It's an honor for me. I would like to say first of all that this paper is an intent to share my experience and my studies of last 6 years about Eastern Mediterranean gas. Studies, academic studies, analysis, yes, but also experience as the head of energy sector in the Union for the Mediterranean. During this experience, I had to keep an equal distance to all member states of Union for the Mediterranean. And that was a unique opportunity for me, because this opportunity to stay at the equal distance of all members, but still advocating for their interest, taught me about different interests that they all have about different topics, different areas of energy. I was lucky. My mandate was covering more than gas, electricity, energy efficiency, renewable energy. Here, the report focused on gas and the Mediterranean gas negotiations. So that's why I intended in my report to translate those interests that I learned during my experience on the field, those interests of each country when we are talking about East Med gas. And I tried to highlight the question of where Eastern Mediterranean gas stands in concerned countries' decision-making criteria. Why I did that? Because I believe that translation of interest, of paradigms, help us understanding each other and strengthens the dialogues. After saying what this report is, I also want to say what it is not. This report is definitely not an advocacy, or it doesn't mean to advocate for integration of one country rather than the other in a negotiation process. But it aims to advocate to change the paradigm and to build up more comprehensive approach. But when I say comprehensive approach is integrating whole countries of the region, impacted countries. I mean Lebanon, I mean Palestine, I mean Turkey. But I also mean all impacted inhabitants. I mean inhabitants of the Gaza, inhabitants of Northern Cyprus. But I also mean stakeholders, all institutions who worked for developing, for producing know-how in the region on energy issues. So in the report, I mentioned OME, Observatoire Méditerranéen de l'Énergie, Association of Private Companies, who provides for years insights on the subject, on gas and other issues. I mentioned MEDREG, Association of Energy Regulators of the region. I also mentioned METIESO, Transmission System Operators Associations. And I discuss on what this inclusive approach will bring us. And when I work on, like when I meant to advocate for this inclusive approach, when I look around me, I see two platforms, two areas where this inclusiveness, or where we are closer to this inclusiveness. One is Union for the Mediterranean. It's an intergovernmental organization established in 2008, where all member states, 43 member states, all Mediterranean shore countries and EU member states are in equidistance, have the same right of vote, and have the institution itself is built by the signature of head of states. And in 2016, we worked also, and I was completely involved in this process, at the regional high-level conference where ministers of energy signed a declaration showing their willingness to work together. And it's a document where all the countries involved in the process has their signature and recognize each other's sovereignty as the establishing documents of the Union for the Mediterranean. A lot of pros, a lot of strengths of this institution, but this institution has also weaknesses. We will talk about that. I mean, the report already mentions. And another one is Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum. Recently built up a forum platform, promising a lot. Has its pros and cons. Pro is the launching event, and the attendees of launching event shows us very high level support, impressive, transatlantic support. EU was there, special envoy from US Energy Secretary was there. But there isn't established institution. Not all members countries, not all involved countries have the signatory. And institutions, regional institutions, stakeholders, we're not there yet. So weaknesses and strengths of both. And ideally, this discussion is also to build up the ideal platform where weaknesses and strengths of each other can complete each other. can have a complementary, can build up a complementary area for us. And when I say that, I know that I sound very optimistic, but I know that I'm not hypothetical, because I know that the region build this cooperation in the electricity market. All the stakeholders managed to build up a competitive, sustainable, and secure electricity supply in the region. So based on this experience, I say myself, we can do the same thing for the gas. But this is only possible in multilateral platforms where all members have the same power and the equal distances. And in the paper, I also bring up a tool, a methodology on how to incentivize this. And I give a role, and I suggest to give a role to international financing institutions. This role is including a criteria, an inclusive criteria about integration, regional integration, including regional integration as a selection criteria for projects. And I think, I acknowledge that all this requires time, and the pressure of investment doesn't give us this time always. But now, an unlikely event, which is COVID-19, and all the ups and downs that it did in the energy market gives us this time that we always need. Because energy, it's mentioned in the report in details. International Energy Agency says it clearly. All the big investments are delayed by the energy companies in the region. So this delay and the slowdown in the energy market, we can use it for thinking. For one time, we have time to think and to develop solutions. Why not using it? And I say, as we have a time, just use it to break current paradigm, and instead of solving short-term problems, foster long-term solutions. And this is about the paper, and I didn't want to go in details, but I will be happy to answer questions during the panel. Thank you very much.
All right. I guess it's over to me as a moderator. Thank you so much, Olgu, for giving us a taste of your paper, which I have read a couple of times. So I'm quite familiar with it, and have really enjoyed participating in discussions with you, and find it extremely thoughtful. Before we get into the discussion, though, there's a little bit of housekeeping I need to do. First, remember everybody that this event is on the record. Number two, please, to the extent that you would like to, please engage with us on Twitter. Our handles are either @AC_Istanbul and or @Atlantic Council. I think Grady is going to circulate those handles for us. And then maybe in 45 minutes or so, I guess, there'll be a Q&A session. We'll go to the audience. Please start sending us your questions, even already now, in the chat. And when you do so, please let us know your name and your affiliation, your title as well. And we won't be able to, of course, answer any questions without any affiliation described. So I'd like to begin the discussion with a question to each panelist, different questions. And I'd like to start with my old boss, and if it's not disrespectful, dear friend, Ambassador Morningstar, with whom I had the huge honor to get to know this part of the world together as we were promoting the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline, the South Caucasus gas pipeline, but not only. Picking up on Olgu's comments in her paper and just now about, I think I'm frozen. Am I there? My screen is frozen. Hello?
Yeah, you're here. We hear you, Matt.
Oh, good. Thank you. So picking up on Olgu's comments about how, our aspiration, I think we all share that these sorts of major energy infrastructure projects will be able to integrate countries and be able to foster a sense of collaboration between the private sector, between companies and the financial sector as well. I wanted to go back to a moment when we were promoting the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline, and we were stuck. We got to a point where the main operator, BP, and who became one of the major investors, didn't want to proceed for political risk reasons, for financial reasons. Their big concern was, and I apologize to Ambassador Rende, you weren't part of this yet, but their big concern was that Turkey would not perform on its cost completing the pipeline on time and at cost. So I know this because I was sitting next to you, you had a very innovative idea. You suggested to BP, maybe we could convince the Turkish government to take on a guarantee. They would guarantee to complete the pipeline on time, on target, or pay a penalty. And it worked. It worked. A lot of other things fell into place, but it worked. And this became a great example of how a pipeline could be used to integrate three countries together and then onward help them build their ties to the European Union. Unfortunately, not every country in the region was part of this. Armenia was excluded. So I wonder if there are any other similar projects in your experience, Ambassador, that have facilitated that sort of integration. Or another question, or from a different angle, you also had great experience in the financial sector, right? I remember you had just come to the State Department from OPIC, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, as it was then called, one of the U.S. export credit agencies that provides investment assistance for projects that are in the U.S. national interest, not necessarily in a lot of other countries, but in the U.S. national interest. So when looking at other financial institutions, including international ones, how likely is it that they will adapt their investment criteria to take into account these regional integration opportunities? Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt. There's a lot to talk about, and it's great to be with you, if even virtually. I remember fondly our many years of working together, even before we got involved in this region, and going back to when we were working together with respect to Russia and the former Soviet Union. We had many good times. I also want to thank Defna and the team in Turkey for putting this on, and congratulate Olga, who I think this was a wonderful paper, and very, very even-handed, and tremendously helpful. So in any event, to go to your questions. First of all, yeah, I think that governments can play a role. I think we did play a role clearly on the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline as we were working together on that. And it was a very interesting situation at that point. What really was happening was that the companies in Turkey also were disagreeing very much on what the cost of that pipeline would be, and were resisting doing the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan route because of cost. And I think basically what we said to our friends in Turkey, well, if you believe that it's really going to be that much less expensive, then guarantee it. And they did. And that's what I think got things off of dead center, and made that incredibly important pipeline possible. One other instance, you asked, are there other instances? I think with respect to the Southern Gas Corridor, I know you'll remember, Matt, because you were involved in this as well, that we all wanted to see, including Turkey, including the EU and the United States, a 30 BCM Nabucco pipeline. And it just was not commercially reasonable at that time. So we took the position that we would support any other pipeline that was expandable, and which allowed some gas to also go into the Balkans. And the companies understood that. And so BP, again, as the lead company, agreed that with respect to a Trans-Adriatic pipeline as a possible route, that it would guarantee that some gas would get into Bulgaria, either through Greece or through Turkey, and other gas into the Western Balkans through through the Albania connection and so on, and that it would be expandable. Turkey also agreeing, of course, to all of this. And so that helped get that the Trans-Adriatic pipeline up and going, and really helped to push the overall Southern gas corridor. So I think there are ways to help. To your other question on, and Olga's comments on international financial institutions, let me just, briefly address that. First of all, I fully agree with you, Olga, on the importance of political negotiation, and also that there is, in fact, some breathing space now because, ironically, because of the pandemic and reduction in demand and reduction in price. These projects are not going to move quickly, and that it is possible to negotiate to remove political obstacles now. I think there is even a 2 or 3 year time frame where that may be possible, and that needs to be done. It's wonderful. The Greek and Turkish foreign ministers met yesterday. Those negotiations have to continue. We cannot afford a major dispute within NATO to take place, and the only beneficiary of such a dispute might be potential adversaries such as our friends from the north and Russia. But with respect to the point on international financial institutions, I think it's a noble goal that you address, Olga, on that, that they should have a role in requiring basically that projects promote regional integration and promote political stability. Frankly, I have questions, and I mean it as questions, not as saying, no, this can't happen, but questions as to how this can be done. How do these financial institutions, do they have the ability to make basically what are political determinations as to what really about regional integration, about stability, about what projects create regional integration? Does regional integration in one part of the region, does that satisfy, or does it have to be regional integration within the whole region? Does a pipeline maybe going from Egypt into the Palestinian territories, and Israel, and on into Jordan, is that sufficient regional integration? Is it totally independent of what might be done with gas going north? I can go on and on these issues, and I just think that, and maybe you can address it, I just think that this would be an extremely difficult for international financial institutions to do, and that these questions really have to be resolved among the country stakeholders in the region.
Yeah, thanks, Ambassador. Olga, I'm going to turn to you to give you a chance to respond to what Ambassador Morningstar had just said. And in fact, that was the gist of the question I had planned to ask you too. I first met you at an Atlantic Council dinner where I got really excited because you were talking about electricity sharing in the Eastern Med. Strange, the things that excite some of us, I guess, yeah? And there are examples on the island of Cyprus of how the two sides depoliticized electricity deliveries from the northern side of the island to the southern side. And so I think depoliticization is the only way you could ever get this sort of broader cooperation. Well, particularly let's focus on the Eastern Mediterranean, right? Where, as Ambassador Morningstar was saying, the level of disputatiousness is so high right now. Thank goodness the Turkish and Greek foreign ministers are speaking. But, I had the honor to write a report for the council about a month ago on the Eastern Med, and just the fact that I was calling for compromise got a lot of people angry in Washington because some of the views of who's right and who's wrong are so set in stone. So you'd mentioned a couple of platforms, right, that could maybe begin to foster the spirit of cooperation among all the states that would be involved, let's just say in the Eastern Mediterranean. And we have time because of COVID, right? The major investments are going to be delayed a bit. But do those platforms, are they robust enough to be able to overcome these deep political disputes, which are going to color and even determine the outcome of the decisions of the international financial institutions, which, as Ambassador Morningstar said, are fundamentally political organizations, even though they're providing economic investment assistance.
Thank you, Matt. First of all, I want to say that I feel flattered because questions of Ambassador Morningstar are bringing further my suggestion. So I start feeling like now the suggestion is start finding its place. So now we start asking details about how it's going to be established. The question is about the modalities. And definitely, you are right. One stability in one part will create instability on other, and those are the exactly same type of questions that IFIs are dealing when they put climate change criteria or when they put social impact assessment criteria, right? Like during the BTC, great example, we have seen that working on the social impact of the project in one region was creating defection for the other part or inequality. And I believe that for this, I don't have answers now. And thanks God, I don't have answers, because I think answers should come in regional dialogue platforms and not from me or one of us. And for this, coming back what you have just said, Matt, I don't think that these platforms are robust enough. No, I mean, I spent 5-6 years in one of them. I had hopes, I had frustrations, it's a job, and I had chance to see weaknesses, and I had chance to see what kind of steps we need to take to strengthen them. Political ownership is key. Institutional setup is another one. And now, how is the third one for me? If we want to build up the ideal platform, and then in this ideal platform is cited equidistance of all partners. And afterwards, this is the member countries to decide in which platform they're gonna invest more. My point is, as now tensions are very high. Of course, we had like very good news in last days. We are all very optimistic and hopeful, definitely. But tensions are high. The situation is wounded. That's why my suggestion is counting on what we have already established. That's why I mentioned Union for the Mediterranean. It has been established in 2008, signature of head of states, recognizing the sovereignty each other. An institution, a ministerial declaration, and even technical assistance. That's important, as I mentioned. Every year, European Commission spends more than 1 million euros to all stakeholders that I mentioned to provide technical input, analysis, reports, maps, suggestions, and to help member states think about how to increase the integration. So we have this setup. Of course, it's weak. The ownership is very low. It doesn't have the visibility that other actions have. But my suggestion is going back on what we have already built in order to make further steps in the crisis that we are going through today. And again, coming back to Ambassador's question, I think this kind of technicalities that we've already faced in climate change, social impact, which are also relatively new criteria that IFIs are using in project selection. We are facing those problems, and again, they are solving them in discussion platforms that they are already involved with the impacted countries.
Okay, thanks, Olgu. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we need some time for the tensions to subside. We've got some platforms where countries are maintaining equal distance from the issues. Maybe there's some hope that as tensions subside, we could see a more collective idea, a more all-inclusive idea of who should be integrated. At the same time, Ambassador Ende, we spent a lot of time together looking at these infrastructure projects as a way to integrate, but in the perspective of what our two countries' national interests were and are and remain. So in the case of Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, it was clear what the goal was. It was to create this corridor of cooperation, helping Azerbaijan and Georgia regain and then solidify their independence, their energy independence through connectivity to Turkey and onward to the EU. And then you and I, when I was now in the private sector, you were still in the foreign ministry, we were looking at ways, I don't think this is a secret, to use possible gas exports from Israel to Turkey and maybe even onward to Greece. And with Cyprus being involved potentially in a positive way. But so we had this integrated, inclusive idea, but it died because of the politics. And the politics are still so raw. So I think my interpretation has been what Turkey has been doing fundamentally in the last couple of months or years is to say, listen to our point of view on demarcation of maritime domain. You guys on one side, Cyprus, Greece, France, you have a concept based on the UN Convention on Law of the Sea. Islands get their full 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone, and it sounds like you think that's unbreakable, unchangeable. It's written in stone, even though there have been exceptions. Let's say in the Aegean, and so now we have this beginning of discussions between the two foreign ministers. Excellent. Do you sense that Turkey is going to be heard, given your perspective as a former, very senior foreign ministry official who's dealt with these issues for a long, long time? Is Turkey's perspective going to be heard? And maybe you could even give us a sense of what Turkey's view might be on what a, quote, reasonable and equitable resolution of these various maritime boundary disputes might be. Oh, you're on mute, I think, though, Ambassador.
Sorry, thank you. Yes. Thank you, Matt. It's a great pleasure to be on your panel. Let me start by expressing my sincere thanks to the Atlantic Council in Turkey, to Daphne Arslan and her able team, to our friends in Washington, and also to Dr. Olgu Okumuş for her comprehensive report. I am delighted to be with you and with Ambassador Morningstar on the same panel. I would like to thank you personally, you and Ambassador Morningstar for your personal contributions, the significant contributions you made to the realization of Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline. I joined the team in 1996 in London and continued for about 10 years. We went through Sangachal and the ceremony, and then the Ceyhan terminal. Yes, I agree with you. I agree fully with you that it was a major project. It's of his historical achievement. In fact, through the BTC, I believe that Azerbaijan managed to consolidate its economic and political independence. And also through this project, we also bypassed Russian territories for the first time, and through the Caucasus directly to the Mediterranean, and also we bypassed the Turkish Straits and contributed to maritime safety. So it was really an achievement, and it was a joint effort. We are thankful to our American friends for their support, and I hope that this support should continue and can continue in resolving issues in the Eastern Mediterranean. Before answering your question, let me make a few general remarks. First of all, I do believe that the East Med is a peculiar place. It's a peculiar geography, and it has been a hotbed for rivalry throughout centuries. It has been a major place for struggle for influence, for political and economic interest, not only among major powers, but also among riparian states. It is unfortunately part of the Middle East. It's full of problems. The Middle East is a tormented region. And in this semi-enclosed sea, we have many issues, unresolved issues, one of which is the Cyprus issue, and it is yet to be resolved. I'm not that optimistic about the future because of some attitude on the part of the parties. So how could we, let's say, monetize, explore and exploit the energy resources in the Mediterranean. It's not that easy because there are overlapping maritime jurisdiction areas. There are conflicting arguments, different legal views. And also in a semi-enclosed sea, as you said, we need to reach an equitable solution. And an equitable solution suggests that that we should roll back from maximalist positions. And in semi-enclosed sea, the international law, the overriding principle of international law is, as I said earlier, it is the principle of equity. And also, Dr. Okumush alluded to some international platforms and so on. These international platforms should be inclusive, should not be targeting certain countries or demonizing a country or two. They have to embrace all countries in the region. And then they should, other members of this forum should act in good faith. It's very important to act in good faith and not to isolate certain countries. Also, we should also keep in mind that the Cyprus issue, we need a comprehensive settlement here. And in order to reach a comprehensive settlement, the Greek Cypriots should come to understand that their interlocutors are the Turkish Cypriots. And that also we should keep in mind that the history of Cyprus did not start in 1974. You see, we don't have to go to the 16th century, but at least we should keep in mind that in 1959 we had the Zurich Agreement, in 1960 the London Agreement, and then they provided the basis for the Cyprus Republic based on the political equality of the two, the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots. So this equality, political equality, is not regarded by the Greek sides, by the Greek Cypriot sides, and they acted unilaterally. Unfortunately, they declared unilaterally their own EEZ. They concluded agreements. They declared unilaterally without consulting the Turkish side, their interlocutors. Without consulting, they also granted licenses and they struck gas. So now the situation is quite difficult. This is why I am not that optimistic about depoliticizing this issue. Yes, it would be great to have, for example, oil companies and energy companies to show interest and maybe try to reach some ad hoc arrangements with the parties until a comprehensive settlement has been reached. But it seems quite unlikely. First of all, what could be done there in this case? Probably the best way would be to have an inclusive and embracing approach, to invite Turkey to all international, multilateral, multinational platforms established regarding the Eastern Mediterranean, and to see if a common denominator can be reached about how to, for example, monetize, how to exploit, not only explore, but to exploit the energy resources in the Eastern Mediterranean, and also avoid conflicts. Yes, I also heard with pleasure that the two ministers, the foreign minister of the Turkish foreign minister and the Greek foreign minister, met in the margin of a security forum meeting in Bratislava, I believe. So it's a good sign. But of course, it's not enough. It's not enough at all, because the Greek side should roll back from their maximalist position, and I think they should be able to maybe negotiate with the parties, including Turkey, and then maybe trying to reach a common understanding about these overlapping areas. Maybe they should reach a common understanding as to what can be done. What can be done in order to resolve this matter? It will take a long time, but in the meantime, if the oil companies or energy companies are interested in monetizing or in exploiting Mediterranean, they might have a role to play. and then we have to be maybe a little bit creative in this regard to let them also play their role. As regards the platforms and the international, it was called the Mediterranean, the Union for the Mediterranean and other international platforms. I don't expect a huge contribution from such platforms at this point in time, Olga. I'm sorry to say that, but let me stop here and get your maybe questions or maybe reaction, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. And by the way, I'd like to remind the audience, please send us your questions. We'd like to get even more so that we can turn this discussion over to you maybe in 20 minutes or so, please. Okay, so picking up on what Ambassador Rende was saying, Ambassador Morningstar, it looks like, at least from the Turkish perspective, the extent to which Mithat's speaking on behalf, he's not speaking on behalf of the Turkish government, but he knows their views. Cyprus question is stuck. Perhaps a divorce is more likely than reunification. I say that with great pain because I also spent a huge amount of my time as a de facto US mediator of the Cyprus question. And there are multiple fields of natural gas that have been discovered in the Eastern Mediterranean looking for market. Together, Ambassador Rende and I, we worked on a potentially creative way that could have brought in Delek and Noble and also maybe gotten some buy-in from Nicosia by helping Nicosia develop some of the energy assets it sought after there could maybe be gas exports to Turkey and elsewhere. It all fell apart because of politics. But there's a lot of natural gas and hopefully more in the Eastern Mediterranean. Early exports seem like they're going to go down to Egypt and be sent as LNG to Europe, while other gas from Israel is already going to the Palestinian territories and to Jordan it will. Given your experience as the ambassador of the United States to the European Union, where you are in the middle of so many multilateral discussions, even though the US isn't a member state, obviously, is there a way that the European Union the European Union could come up with a way to allocate exports of some of the gas or support some of the projects that would be inclusive, let's say, of Turkey or Lebanon, Turkey, others that would make Nicosia and Athens happier? In other words, sort out all of the various options in a way that can get to what Dr. Okumush is saying, an overall concept of a collaborative view of integration. Some states are integrated in one vector, some in another vector. When you take it all together, everybody's kind of cooperating together. Or is the disputatiousness, again, in the Eastern Med right now, just too sharp? And the battle lines are drawn too firmly to give any hope for something like that. You're muted, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Matt. Let me respond to your point. And also, I'd like to respond to some other points by Ambassador Rende. By the way, it's very good to see you again. And thank you for your very kind comments about Baku Tbilisi Ceyhan. And also, I would like also to respond a little bit to all those points. But I'll try and be brief. Yeah, I think the European Union has to be involved. I think the United States should be involved. But neither the United States nor the European Union nor the United States and European Union together can dictate how the Eastern Mediterranean will be divided or what kinds of areas of cooperation there could be, but can certainly play a role in facilitating negotiations involving all the parties, including Turkey. And I totally agree with you, Ambassador Rende. Turkey, you can't have political negotiations without one major party being involved. And Turkey obviously has to be involved. I would like to make a few points with respect to the very much disputed maritime boundary issues. Matt, you and I were involved in that, in dealing with the Caspian Sea when we were supposed to allegedly mediate the boundary between Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. in the Caspian Sea. I was also involved in negotiating a boundary agreement in the Gulf of Mexico between the United States and Mexico. And my own view is that legal principles with respect to maritime boundaries are at best murky. I mean, we ran into those issues in the Caspian. You remember there was a question whether, a few rocks off of the coast of Turkmenistan would constitute a part of Turkmenistan that should be recognized in determining a midline. There are no clear answers on a lot of these issues. And so I strongly believe that these issues are never going to be, in the end, be determined by an international court of justice or by arbitration. Countries, to go, for example, to an arbitration, they may not like what the results are and may be totally surprised with what the results may be. There needs to be political negotiation as part of the overall political negotiations that need to take place on these issues. And there can be situations, and I think Ambassador Rinda, you sort of alluded to this, you can have a boundary, but that doesn't mean that parties can't share the assets that may be going underneath the boundary on both sides. In the ocean, for example, you could have, a pool of resources that are partly in one country's territory and another country's territory, and there can be agreements as to how to divide those resources and getting and many parties getting the benefits. And I think that's what needs to be ultimately addressed in the Mediterranean, and maybe the only way to resolve those issues. If I can just take a moment on as to Olga's points on the international financial institutions. When I was at OPIC, I assume it's still the case it's now the Development Finance Corporation, that determinations do need to be made as to environmental impacts, social impacts, labor impacts. We had all sorts of things that had to be looked at. As difficult as those issues may be, making a climate change determination, for example, as you mentioned, I don't think they're as hard as the political determinations. And I think that's what's going to be very difficult for international financial institutions to get directly involved in. I don't know if I've answered at this point. I've rambled on a little bit. I don't know, Matt, if I've answered your questions, but I'm happy to talk, if you want to amplify further, if you want me to respond more.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter if you answered my questions because that was totally interesting. But I would ask.
It's like the political debates in the United States. If you watched the debate the other night, they didn't answer any of the questions.
Right. No, but you did. I mean, I'm really interested in the dynamic as you experienced it inside the EU, and are they capable? I think probably the answer you said is no, but is it possible to get all those member states to come together and say, you know what, we really should lean on the EIB, the EBRD. We should get them, and we should give them political guidance and a formula on how we want them to use our investment arms as the European Union to promote projects that we think are the most integrative. In other words, of course, the EU can't divide up the Eastern Med, as you said in the beginning. But does even the EU have the consensus or the ability to overcome those political differences and build consensus as they do on other issues? Or is it a bridge too far?
Oh, I don't know, Matt. I think it's somewhat of a bridge too far. And I think that the EU can definitely play a helpful role. I think and I think member states can play a helpful role. It's very interesting, just in the past several weeks, I know in Turkey, I'm sure people are pretty upset with the position that Macron was taking with respect to the dispute in the Eastern Mediterranean. But actually, at the end of the day, I sort of felt that Macron was playing the bad cop and Merkel was playing the good cop, and Merkel was in part because of the pressure that Macron was putting on, that Merkel, as a good cop, could encourage the parties to come together and to begin negotiations. So I think that the EU and member states do have a role to play, but maybe, but to set a real framework, I think they can facilitate such a framework, but I don't think they can. Well, I don't know that they can come up with exactly what that framework could be.
May I join?
Yeah,
sure, Excellency.
And could I just add a few points to what Ambassador Morningstar said? As regards the possible contributions of the third parties like the European Union and the United States, of course, definitely Turkey would welcome some constructive contributions. But it is quite important that the European Union should not take sides. The European Union, with respect to maritime disputes between member states, they managed to remain neutral. So they should also remain neutral if they are to be honest brokers. They should refrain from harsh statements. For example, they should not qualify the drilling activities of Turkey as illegal and then they put themselves, they act as if they are an international court. So it's very important if you would like to be a good mediator or honest broker as an institution, as a third party. The third party, according to international law, should refrain from let's say prejudice and should avoid, for example, adversely affecting the interests of the third parties. Their action should not prejudice the interest of the third parties or the other parties. This is why I would welcome wholeheartedly some constructive contributions, but from the United States also, and from the European Union. But the European Union made already a big mistake by offering full membership to the Greek Cypriots to the European Union. And now they are repeating their mistakes by also siding with Greece and the Greek Cypriots and keeping Turkey under pressure. You see, but you should not leave anyone behind. You should really, I'm talking about the European Union. They should really act with restraint and try to encourage also Greece and the Greek Cypriots to roll back from their maximalist positions. It's obvious. You see, Turkey has the longest continental coast in the Eastern Mediterranean, and this is assuming a close sea, as we discussed with you earlier, in fact, on another occasion, when I said that islands do not, according to international law, do not necessarily generate full, beyond their territorial waters, do not generate full maritime jurisdiction areas. And you smiled and you said the necessary here necessarily is important, you said, do not necessarily generate. So especially islands, if they are competing against continental maritime areas, continental zones, they, under special circumstances, they are not offered. And we have so many international court decisions, and these decisions became an international customary law. So the Turkish side, they believe that they have a solid legal ground and also vital interest to protect in the Eastern Mediterranean. You cannot let any country to grab a huge territory of EEZ, which cannot be, legitimized at all. So this is important. We welcome your contributions, like you did in the case of Baku to BCJ-Han and the Southern Gas Corridor. They are major projects today, thanks to these projects that we contributed to the energy security, supply security of Europe. And I hope that we can do something together in the Eastern Mediterranean. And you know better than I that the best market for the East Med gas is Turkey. It is Turkey, and therefore, let's work together. But let's not leave anyone behind. Let's not demonize any country or isolate any country here, because it won't work. And we should also tell our Greek friends not to stoke nationalism because talking nationalism will breed further nationalism. It is not good. Let's have an embracing approach, and I hope that we can work together in the days ahead.
Let me briefly, Matt, just briefly respond that I think the biggest problem comes in these kinds of issues when both sides are sure that they are right. And I think that in this case, and I don't know that everybody would agree with me, but I do think that the legal principles are rather murky. Yeah. And I think that what the United States has to do, along with the EU, is push for political negotiation with respect to these issues, and in order to hopefully get each side off of the position, well, we're right and we're not moving, but looking at what's the best political resolution to satisfy all sides and to avoid a situation where nobody gets anything because of these obstacles.
Excellent, Ambassador Morningstar. Thank you. And
Matt, may I just say, okay,
sure,
if you have time, I will just
go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. It's very important. I agree with you that the international law of the sea, especially, is full of ambiguities, and sometimes they left it with this constructive ambiguities, they call it, in the interest of consensus, reaching a consensus. Now here, this is why it is ambiguous and it is murky. You're right. You might recall that the Turkish leadership, when they concluded the MOU with the Memorandum of Understanding with Libya, with the UN recognized Libyan government, the same day the Turkish leadership made it clear that they expressed their interest and their preparedness to engage with other riparian states and to enter into negotiations with a view to reaching an equitable solution. So the Turkish side has emphasized on various occasions that we are for an equitable solution. It's very important. This is the overriding principle in international law. But unfortunately, we do not recognize the Greek Cypriots as the sole owners and the representative of the island as a whole. So we are not in a position to negotiate with the Greek Cypriots until a comprehensive settlement has been reached in the island, and we hope that it can be reached. If not, then a two-state solution should be encouraged by the international community. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ambassador Rende. This is a perfect opportunity to turn back to Dr. Okumuş, because now, Olgu, you've heard two great practitioners exploring for the possibilities of ways, mechanisms, even beyond your platforms, but to build that sense, that common sense of integration. So over to you to respond to any and all of those points, please. And then we'll go to the audience's questions right after that.
Thank you, Matt. What a chance, what a chance. How lucky I feel. I just want to follow up at first to the question that you addressed to Ambassador Morningstar and that created the discussion, which is about the contribution of the EU. The first thing is, once decision will be taken, decision A, B, C, D, A, and when we will pass the operation stage, implementation of these projects, where LNG or the pipeline will be sold, how market will be settled and everything, which is the real part of the job. We will need know-how, information, regulations, connections, dialogue with the Ministry of Energies of all these involved countries. And it has been years that EU, through the European Commission's Director General of Neighborhood, is providing funding, is financing technical inputs, technical work of regulation agencies, transmission operators' work, and EU is funding this. So coming back, all these platforms and how much they are robust and everything, these platforms exist, but they don't have funding. And this is the EU through the European Commission and the DG Neighborhood is funding all the system and producing the know-how that us as researchers and experts on this team can think and can fund our thinking and build up some further projections. So yes, they already contribute, and this contribution is priceless and will be even more valuable when we're gonna pass to the implementation part. And maybe one more answer or one more reaction to what Ambassador Rende has said about he doesn't believe that platforms can do that. Platforms they're platforms. They are whatever countries, their owners who are their countries who are their owners will do it. I designate this area, this roof. It's a comfortable atmosphere where they can think and talk to each other without dealing with the luggage that they bring from other issues, other challenges they have. Our history has seen examples. The electricity is the perfect example. I mean, Cyprus and Turkey are sitting around the same table when they are talking about the electricity interconnections. And this roof helps them not to forget, not to delay, but to put aside the other issues that they have and only focus on electricity. So that's why I designated these platforms. I think they can turn to those isolated areas I want to call, but areas that countries isolate as much as they want to do, but they are there and they can think and build up solutions. They are not actors. They are places, frames where countries build up solutions.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to continue your remarks just now, Dr. Okumush, by going to one of the audience's questions. And so it's Jennifer Meal, our dear friend, Executive Director for the Middle East, Turkey, and Central Asia at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. How critical is it that Turkey finds a place within the Eastern Med Natural Gas Forum over the next, let's say, 6 months to a year? And what might be a possible pathway toward this outcome? And what concessions would have to be made by whom for that to happen? I mean, that's, I think, primarily to you, Olgu, but of course, either ambassador, please feel free to answer as well.
Matt, I need you to repeat your question because I lost the voice a point. So then I get, can you just repeat it?
Sure. So how important is it that Turkey gain membership in the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum over, let's say, the next year? And how might that happen? Like, what sort of concessions might need to be made? By whom?
I mean, how likely it depends on countries.
Or how important does it matter? I mean,
important. Yeah, I think how important. At first, again, I think it's not only Turkey issue involving countries. It also Palestine. It also Lebanon. I think we should little bit enlarge the question, and how important. The answer to how important at first is. This is an analogy that I use in the paper. I would like to repeat is about how strong we want our chain to be. What that means. Each actor will come with a contribution. And in the Mediterranean, I think we should not we should not talk about the Mediterranean region as if it is located in somewhere in Australia, near New Zealand. No, our region is so close to Middle East. And the region we are talking is also hosting 3 main crises, Libya, Iraq, and they are there, and they are our neighbors, and it's happening. So, which means that in each step we take in this region, we should take into account the security. Unfortunately, our region also has witnessed ISIS and all the security problems that we faced. And Iraqi pipeline are the good examples. Arab pipeline, Egyptian pipeline, and all the terrorist attack we have seen. So we need to think in terms of security. So each participants, again, I said 3 countries are not involved. Each one will come in one contribution. Because the question is about Turkey, that I can say Turkey's contribution as one of the biggest army of the NATO. I think it can be one. Yes, no? And number 2. And I just didn't want to rank.
May I add a few things to Olgu's?
Of course, if Olgu's done, yeah, for sure. He's going to come to you anyway. Yeah.
I can continue afterwards. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you. With respect to East Med Gas Forum, it's a platform. I think we should not really exaggerate the position or its role at this point. East Med Gas Forum was established probably to talk openly about what can be done in order to exploit and monetize the resources in the Eastern Mediterranean. But then, of course, by ignoring Turkey, which should be one of the major players in the Eastern Mediterranean, then it was politicized, and unfortunately, of course, probably Greece and the Greek Cypriots opted for having Turkey out of it. But it would be a good sign, sign to invite Turkey and other riparian states to have an inclusive approach and invite everybody in the interest of the people of the region. And I think the countries, the riparian states, should take a longer view of history. They should keep in mind that geography, we are bound by our geography, and that if they can work together, if they manage to engage in meaningful cooperation and put enmities and disagreements aside, maybe this East Med Gas Forum can produce results in the future. But at this point, at this point in time, I don't expect much from it. But I appreciate the question. I appreciate the value of the question, and I hope that in 6 months' time, that by encourage, of course, I mean, the United States and other players should encourage member states of the Gas Forum to invite Turkey and other riparian states to join.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know how am I on mute?
No, please go ahead, Dick, please.
Okay. I don't know how you avoid Turkey being part of this if it's going to be a meaningful platform. But I do think that what would be extremely helpful is that if political negotiations are going to take place, and if this is going to be a meaningful platform, I think all the parties should pledge to avoid military confrontation, and that there be real political negotiations without the threat of a military conflict.
Yeah, and yep, yes, Dr. Okumush.
Yes, and just to follow up on Ambassador Morningstar, and unfortunately in this region, we had other armed forces than nation states. So nation states being together and unified can also can have a proactively help other armed forces to jeopardize their investments. Thank you.
So we've been talking a bit about security. I mean, you were actually a little while ago, dear Olgu, and we have a question. Can you hear me? Yeah, we have a question from somebody that all of us have known for a long time and really love, John Roberts, who's a senior fellow at the Eurasia Center and Global Energy Center at the Atlantic Council. And John and I have discussed this question many, many times, and I'd really like to hear your response, dear Olgu. So he said, there's a marked contrast in your stimulating paper between the acceptance that politics, and particularly security politics, trumps commercial advantage. But looking to the international financial institutions for solutions, while genuinely laudable, comes up against security considerations. So can you comment on the balance between security, I guess, as a driving force of decisions versus economics and IFI's traditional concerns? We've touched on this question a few times, but you were really starting to drill down on the security. It would be good to hear more from you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I mean, that gives me a chance to elaborate on this more, and maybe also to remember to all of us the mandate of international financing institutions. They are development banks. Their owners are countries. I know things are changing, and I know that we are all complaining when we see some project funded by EBRD or EIB, not only EBRD, like others. Time to time, yes, it happens that we are frustrated, but we know what is their real mandate is development, and they are owned by countries. So they are expected to follow countries' interest. and the sustainability and the security, I believe so, is highest interest, is one of the highest interests of countries. And in this dilemma, I think is a very good example to see, to think or to remember together why EBRD was funded and how in 90s, I mean, it worked in post-Soviet countries on the transition, economic transition process. And this project, how much they were motivated by commercial interest and how much they were there to support the transition and of course to avoid further security issues with neighbors. I think the answer is must mostly like that than the considering IFIs and their role in impact purely commercial. Thank you.
Matt,
Okay.
may I join? May I say a few words? Thank you. I thank John Roberts for the question. Yes, as regards financing major energy projects and infrastructure, it's quite difficult for the international financial institutions to engage, especially in the case of Eastern Med, where you have a political risk here. The risk is high, and when there is risk, of course, first of all, the institutions, the financial institutions, EBRD, World Bank, European Investment Bank, and others, will study the project and decide whether it is economically viable and environmentally sustainable, whether it is bankable or not, what is the political risk here, if there is a conflict situation, and probably they will not be able to convince their partners to finance such risky projects. I do not see any opportunity at this point, especially with regard to the discoveries of gas, the gas discoveries in the Eastern Mediterranean. But maybe major energy companies, for example, a major company which has enough resources, financial resources, to realize such a project, if they strike gas, for example, let's say an American or a British or a French company, then they could probably try to tie back other discoveries and make a project bankable or economically viable and finance it. Maybe the major energy companies will be able to convince their shareholders easier than banks in such cases because of the unpredictable situation and the political risk.
Yeah, let me jump in too. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to one of my original points that I'm not sure that the international financial institutions are the ones to be determining political risk. I think that regional cooperation and stability and so forth. But I'm not sure it gets to that point. I don't, and I part a little bit with Mitad on this. I don't think even the major companies are going to make major investment if there's a huge political risk. So it may not, it won't even get to the international financial institutions if some of these obstacles aren't solved. Yeah, you may get some exploration, but I don't see a major project going forward with a huge amount of political risk. That's why right now it seems to me the only viable project and the only one that you'd even put in the more likely category is gas going from the Zohr field to Egypt, and then maybe back to Europe as LNG, for example. But I don't think you'll even get, as I was saying, I don't think it will get to the point where the development banks are making that determination because the companies will have already made that determination.
Yeah, and so you may have just answered the question I was about to ask from the brilliant Gina Cohen, who we all know her, a lecturer at the Technion in Israel. But it's slightly different, but similar to what you were just saying, Ambassador Morningstar. Chevron has now bought into Noble, as we know, is new operator of Tamar and Leviathan fields. Does that change anything in terms of maybe increased appetite to invest on the part of Chevron in the Eastern Med?
Well, I obviously I can't speak for Chevron, and I don't know how much risk they're willing to entertain. I do think that a major company such as Chevron being involved, as well as we know that Exxon's been involved and so forth, that will be an incentive for the United States to be even more involved in trying to find solutions. And I hope that happens in in a very constructive way. But as far as Chevron's appetite for risk, I'm sure they're very happy to have these potential resources, but they're not going to put in huge amounts of money if they think that the project could be, fall apart because of politics.
May I, Matt? A few
Please,
points.
please. Yes,
Yeah, if Chevron, we wish them the best of luck. They both noble, so they are now partners at Leviathan, and also in Aphrodite's.
yes,
Isn't
exactly.
Yes, also. So if in the period ahead, if Turkey, through their deep sea drilling capacity, which is now reinforced by Kanuni, the new ship, if they manage to strike strike gas in their declared continental shelf, or in the declared concession blocks by the Turkish Cypriots, then maybe then there will be a new market. They could approach Turkey to sell not only the gas of Aphrodite or Leviathan, but to join, for example, the Turkish Petroleum Company, and then there will be maybe enough gas to be able to have a platform, or to invest enough, and then the market will be Turkey, because you know better than I that the planned natural gas pipeline through the Mediterranean to Italy is not economically viable. Everybody knows that, but it is of political nature, and it will be on the table for the time being. I hope that Chevron can, or other American companies can show interest in the Turkish market, because by 2050, Turkey is going to consume about 60 BCM, and then maybe it will rank as second in Europe as a major gas consumer. And also a major importer of American LNG. By the way, who was going to compete with American LNG and the prices of an American LNG? I don't think that the Zohr field to be sent, the gas from Zohr field to be sent to Egypt, and from there to Europe, probably it won't be able to compete with the American LNG. Anyway.
Well, we'll see about that, Mithat. That may be. That may be, and there is a real question as to commercial viability on all of these projects, given where prices are going to be and where demand is going to be. And the elephant in the room that we haven't talked about is, what effect will the energy transition have on all of these projects? A lot of us, including me,
Right.
think gas is going to be really important. But you talk about what the EU is going to do with respect to the Eastern Mediterranean. There's a lot of people in the EU, at the Commission and member states, don't think we should be doing any gas projects at this point. And so there's a real question as to how that's going to unfold also over the next couple of years, and how much gas is going to be replaced by other sources of energy. I think it's going to be a long time, but there are people who would disagree with me on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. In Europe, there are many people who think that they should just forget about natural gas, oil, and everything fossil. But it's not realistic. They will need gas for heating. They will need gas, natural gas, for their baseload capacity, and so on. Only with renewables, they will not be able to sustain their economy.
They may not need Mediterranean gas. We'll see.
Yeah. Oh, they may not.
Outsiders may not need Mediterranean gas, definitely, but insiders, let's say regionals. I mentioned in the paper, Jordan, Lebanon, needs gas right now. They need it now, and also shows perspective for a regional market in terms of transport cost and emergency. And unfortunately, neither Jordanian economy, neither Lebanon economy, Palestine as well, allows in current circumstances. I hope it will change soon, and I'm one of the I want it to change, but it will not allow the energy transition to happen as fast as it's probably will happen in EU countries. So there's a demand for gas, and unfortunately, there is a slower energy transition in some Mediterranean countries.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end. I think we got about 6 minutes left. And I wanted to explore one of the comments that Ambassador Rende just made in his penultimate intervention, talking about the Chevron question, right? How if Chevron together in the Black Sea is working with Turkey, there's a discovery, and then it's now operating both Aphrodite and Leviathan and Tamar, all three of them. Maybe there's a way to create some sort of commercial commonalities, common interests, like you and I were working on, Ambassador Rende, of all full disclosure, when I was working for a public company here in Turkey, Turkas, trying to assemble a consortium of off-takers of gas from Leviathan into Turkey, which is the region's largest and fastest growing gas market. So lo and behold, former BOTAŞ General Director, but before this part of our discussion here, Goham Yardim, someone we all worked with very closely, he asked an intriguing question. I think the answer might be I got to tell you the question in a second, but I think the answer might be without Cypriot approval or Syrian approval, it's very difficult to do a pipeline from Israel to Turkey. But here's what he asks. Do you think it would take a shorter time to realize a natural gas offshore pipeline from Egypt to Turkey, including Israel, but excluding Cyprus, and then to the Balkans for the solution of regional cooperation in a quicker way? And then he says, such an offshore Mediterranean pipeline passing through Israel and Egyptian natural gas purchase agreement had been negotiated and initialed during his time as the BOTAŞ General Director.
Yes, if I may, I understand our common friend Gökhan Bey, he is asking if it would be feasible to buy gas from Egypt through Turkey and send it to the Balkans. Is it true? Is it clear?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That's it. Well, first of all, we need to do a lot of work to normalize Turkish-Egyptian relations, and also to normalize Turkish-Israeli relations, and then to see if there is a market for Egyptian gas for Soch, and there are major oil companies there who are partnering with the Egyptians. But of course, it is a possibility depending on the prices, on the cost. According to the law of the Sea Convention, no country can prevent the laying of pipelines. You can, if they are crossing your maritime jurisdiction areas, you will be in a position to set the route, to decide on the route, and maybe you can negotiate with the owners of the pipeline. But you might recall when we tried very hard, you and I, to convince both the Turks and the Israelis that they should not be maximalist and to agree on the prices. We couldn't convince both sides to work on a pipeline from Leviathan, Matt. And the market was more conducive. The environment was more conducive than today, but unfortunately they missed the opportunity. Today it is even more difficult given the oversupplied gas market and also the prices of LNG from the United States. So it is a possibility. Gökhan Bey, thank you for the question, but it's highly unlikely that, given the present political environment and the relationship between Turkey, Israel, and Egypt, it's highly unlikely that we can realize such a thing.
I feel the same. All right, maybe one last question, and it's from somebody who happens to be a very close friend of mine, Hakan Ferhatoglu of Yüksel Holding. Could we potentially envision the United States, despite its jurisdictionally not being in the area, but could it still play an honest broker role between Turkey and the EU, or in conflicts involving Turkey and EU member states? Maybe initially focusing on and opting for a commercially acceptable roadmap for these sorts of projects.
Maybe Richard, Dick would like to say something, and then I will continue maybe.
Well, I think the United States should play a role in that way to help resolve some of these issues. And we have an election coming up on November 3rd, and it'll be interesting to see, depending on who wins, what approach might be taken. But I hope that the United States plays an important role in the region. I'm not sure whether or not, and it should not take a back seat, but I think, again, it's important that the United States work with other partners and all of this, including the EU and all of the stakeholders within the region. I was going to also raise, and Mithat, you were going to add a little bit to that, but maybe a provocative question in the sense of why should Turkey even bother with the Eastern Mediterranean as far as gas resources? It can be an LNG importer from different parts of the world and then ship that LNG on into different places. There can be an expansion of the southern gas corridor, which will bring more gas into Turkey. The Black Sea exploration could be a huge boon to Turkey if that works out. So, and it's a little bit of a cynical question, and I don't mean it that way, but I might just ask you, why bother?
Well, if I may, thank you. It's a very provocative question. I understand. First of all, I'm glad that Turkey managed to discover gas in the Black Sea, and now maybe in a few years' time, it can be regarded as not only a major consumer but also a producer of natural gas. As regards to the Eastern Mediterranean, I mean, just looking at the map would tell you, would give you the answer. And Turkey has
it is close by.
has the longest coastline with 1,750, or maybe some friends suggested it's about over 1,800 kilometers of coastline, and with vital interest to protect in the Eastern Mediterranean. And then there is the Cyprus issue. And when our British friends decided to leave during the late 50s, you see, they strike a balance between the interest of Turkey, the interest of the two communities, and that of Greece. And of course, they also established their bases there. So it was a good balance, you see, and this balance was upset by the Greek Cypriots and the Greek side. So Turkey has to follow day and night the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean and try to, let's say, of course, try to reach a comprehensive agreement. Because this issue, when I started at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1982, they offered me one of the files, which was Cyprus. So you see, you continue to deal with Cyprus as a diplomat for ages, and let's leave it. Let's fix it if possible, and leave it behind us. So it's not only about striking gas; it's about also maintaining and defending our vital interest. And it is really this issue is beyond party politics in Turkey. Believe me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Obviously, it's in Turkey's vital political interest to be involved, and it was a bit of a facetious question. But I do think there is a reality as to whether Turkey really needs that gas, even though it has to be involved, clearly has to be involved politically in the Eastern Med.
But we are spending billions of dollars. We are spending billions of dollars for our the energy bill is the real source for our foreign currency problem. So we need more gas. If really we are going to consume 60 BCM, 6 billion cubic meters per annum in let's say in 20 years, then then we need to have our own gas. We cannot just rely on Russian gas or other, because normally, you see, if worse comes to worse, you need also to have your infrastructure, you need to have your storage capacity to be able to have more FSRUs and to get LNG. At least the LNG should be 20% of your total consumption, and if possible, to have your own gas, and in order to balance and guarantee your energy supply security.
Well, it'll also be interesting to see whether the energy transition will affect that 60 BCM need. I know we have to go. We have to finish. I'm sorry.
Let's say one word, Matt, or it's over.
Yeah.
Okay, just like to continue on the provocative question of Ambassador Morningstar, the same way we can also ask the question why Merkel bothers about the Mediterranean. Germany doesn't even have borders in the Mediterranean. I would say they are just a Mediterranean country, France.
Not East.
But I will say it's why I ask this question. Why I bring up Germany. I think also this question allows me also to bring up one point that I mentioned in the report. That's why I didn't want to end before then. It's about the political identity and the way that country defined itself, where it stands in the international dynamics. And in Turkey's case, Mediterranean, being a power in Mediterranean, is one of the factors that Turkey is using when it's sitting around the table with Russia, is one of the counterbalancing effects that Turkey is using. And I think all actions of Turkey, or all aggressiveness, we can call, like in the Turkish politics in this area, needs to be also seen from this perspective. Thank you.
An excellent closing point, strategic, integrative. Thank you for a fantastic discussion. For me, it was hugely fun. I learned a lot, and we ended up in a place that's more inspiring than I even expected. So thank you. Congratulations, Dr. Okumush, on your report and your upcoming additional family member. Enjoy Dacha. I'd like to turn over now to our fearless leader, one of my favorite people on earth, Executive Vice President of the Atlantic Council, Damon Wilson, for our closing remarks. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Bryza. Matt, it is what a terrific discussion. I learned a lot myself as well. Let me just give a shout out and a thank you to our senior fellow and author, Ogu Okumush, for this terrific work. And I think you have won the Room Raider contest by having the most beautiful, enticing setting and backdrop to you. It just reminds us how much we all wish we could be there in person. We hope to travel over to Turkey soon. But it was great to hear from all of you. Thanks, Ambassador Dick Morningstar, the founding chairman of our Global Energy Center, our board member of the Atlantic Council, our OECD Perm Rep, Mihat Rende, thank you for that. And Ambassador Matt Bryza. Matt, an extraordinary moderator. Really appreciate the way you've stewarded this conversation. I think our viewers know that the Atlantic Council is really it's a place that's not just watching and analyzing the world. It's a place that's about shaping the future together. And that means that we're committed to constructive US engagement, working with our friends and partners to solve big challenges. And we've had a long strategic commitment to Southeast Europe, to the Eastern Med. We're committed to Turkey as a NATO ally and part of the strategic West. And it's why we have this Turkey program, to approach these complex regional issues from a new angle, to build dialogue, to promote active solutions. And it's under the leadership of Desna Arslan that we've been able to build out this program, play an increasingly important role building on our decade-plus time in the region. We've clearly, in the past weeks, months, this year, seen real tensions building in the Eastern Med, including among NATO allies and important partners of the United States, Turkey and Greece. We have a comparable conversation that's been taking place in Athens on these same issues. But I'm encouraged to see some chance of willingness to come to the table to discuss these issues. I do think it's time for more active US diplomacy towards this regard. But more than that, I think it's important that all of us that are working on these, that we think bigger, more ambitious about this region, not as a place of just challenges, but as a region of opportunity. And so there've been some great ideas that we've heard today in this conversation, in the report, and other comparable conversations. And I think we want to think realistically, taking into account the realities of geopolitics, how to use and think about the energy opportunities, but bigger opportunities in the region. And I think this report is a contribution towards that goal. It's a meaningful step towards a more peaceful, integrated, and prosperous region. So thank all of you, in particular to our author, Olgu, thank you for your work, all of our speakers and panelists today. The Atlantic Council is committed to tackling this complex issue comprehensively from a broad range of viewpoints on how we create regional stability and integration and boost economic development in the region. So for this reason, you will see some programming across the Council in our programming under the banner of this Eastern Mediterranean Perspective series that brings together the Atlantic Council and Turkey program, our Global Energy Center, our Rafi Hariri Center for the Middle East, and our Future Europe initiative. Our event today kicks off this continuing series of discussions. Stay tuned for more upcoming events and publications in the series, and hope to welcome you back. Thanks to all of you as we break for lunch in North America, and we'll send you off to end your day in Europe and Turkey. Thank you.